What is up, guys? Welcome to Real Talk. I'm JP McDaniel, and first off, I just want to give a huge shout out to everyone for their support with the second episode here for Idra's interview. A lot of people loved it. I'm so thankful for you guys for watching it, for spreading it around, and we're going to do things a little bit differently. I had fan questions kind of intermixed with my own last episode. This episode, and probably from here on out, we're going to save those till the very end. But that's all I got here, so let's go ahead and introduce my guest for today. It is none other than Grubby. Now, Grubby's actually the winner of more than 38 LAN tournaments, 6 of those World Championships, but the majority of them are for Warcraft 3 and not Starcraft 2. So, Grubby, first off, congrats on the recent success in Starcraft 2 with the World Championship, Netherlands Nationals, and the MLG Spring Arena Top 12. But I got to ask you, where did the nickname Grubby come from? Does it mean anything?
Well, it goes back a long time ago. I had a pretty cool situation with my brothers. We were all kind of into games. I have 3 older brothers, and 2 of them are into games quite a lot. And we used to do like Dungeons and Dragons, pen and paper RPGing, so role-playing games. And we all had this character, this persona that we kind of took from one game to the other, from one mission to the other, and from one quest to the other. I was kind of short for my age, and so it fell to me to be the dwarf character. And I thought, I have to think of some name, but I also wanted to be unique. Internet didn't exist yet, at least not beyond what it was developed for initially, not publicly. But I knew that eventually this name could, it could be compared to other people who also have nicknames, and I didn't want to have something like Darkslayer. No offense to all the Darkslayers out there.
Hey man, there's a lot of them. You gotta be careful.
There's a lot of them, and I'm sure it's really cool. But the point is, I wanted to have a unique name, so I thought of one myself. So it's pure fantasy. Came up with Grubtor Steelheart. Yeah. And when I joined this UK-based team in Starcraft Brood War, they always were calling me Grubby instead of Grubtor. And when I joined their team, I was like, yeah, I'll go with it. What is it in a name? What is a nickname apart from usually what people name you? Yeah? So I thought, Grubby, I'll go with that. It sounded funny. However, for all my priding myself on my relatively okay English for that age, I did not know what Grubby meant yet. Had I known, I don't know if I would have stuck with it. But now it's as stuck with me as it could be possible.
Yeah. Well, it's a good name, even though it does have that other meaning. Go look it up on the internet if you're curious. We're not going to talk about it here. So, before we get to your gaming career, let's just talk about your childhood. Where were you born, and where did you grow up?
I was born and raised in the city of Nieuwegein in the Netherlands. It's kind of a suburb to the 4th biggest city in the Netherlands, in the center of the Netherlands. And I've lived there pretty much all my life, besides, some sojourns or trips that I've made to other places, be it for a short or a medium amount of time. This is where I've always lived.
You mentioned that you have 2 brothers. How old are they, and what do they do? Are they gamers like you, or do they have other jobs?
Yeah, 3 older brothers. They are 2, 6, and 8 years older, respectively. The youngest one, his name is Taco. He is he's pretty much everything that has ever existed. He's a specialist in some things, but definitely a jack of all trades. We always kind of joke between us that I'm the one who does like one thing really a lot, focus on it, try to become the best, whereas he tries to become the best at something new, and it does it for a while, and then he feels the need to take up a new challenge straight away. So what has he not done? He's done acting, theater, dancing, like 5 different kinds of dancing. He has taught people, he has studied with people, capoeira, and right now he's doing fight scene choreography.
Wow.
Then my next brother in line, who's 6 years older, his name is Arthur, and he's right now working for a company which manages the network operations of the Dutch railway system. So he's doing computer stuff there. And then my eldest brother is working for an insurance company. He's 8 years older than me. He's got 2 children. My second oldest brother Arthur, he's got 1 child right now.
So big family you got there. What did your parents do for work, and do they do the same thing still?
Well, my father has been working for banks, and he actually retired last year, so he's enjoying the retired life. And my mother has a small clothing seamstress company, and she also does work for various companies who have clothing, like repairs, new clothing, anything with clothing. She can do it.
Awesome, awesome. What does your family think of your career path? I mean, you have a lot of kind of, I guess, normal jobs in there. One of your brother's a banker, your mom a seamstress. What do they think of you as the competitive gamer or professional gamer?
Well, for example, the eldest brother, he has never dabbled in games at all. So for him, maybe the leap or the chasm of interest, the chasm of being able to relate to it is a little bit bigger. He understands what I'm doing, but because he has no way to relate to it, just like I can't really relate to having children, these, these are two things that we can't like talk at length about. But the other two brothers, they've gained so much themselves, have had their various spurs of addiction, if you want to call it that way. And so they understand very well what I'm doing. And in fact, they've played roles in sometimes like me improving or, like they've played a lot of the same games that I do, though not as passionately as I do, for example, myself. My father, well, there came a point whereby I was a gamer, but I wanted to make that leap to becoming a pro gamer, and
Right.
I knew that my father wanted for me a good education, and then to go to university, and then hopefully get a stable job. So I was a little, I don't know, scared of asking him whether this is a career path that I could pursue, but in the end, he accepted my choices and he understood it. I think at a deeper level than at the time I realized, because he used to actually be a very good chess player, and becoming a professional chess player is something that he might have done had he lived in a different time and age, had it maybe been more, I don't know, more viable, or had conditions in his life then been different. So maybe he understood it better than I could have possibly foreseen. My mother, she's a pretty free thinker, and she's expanded on that aspect of her character and her life and her view on life. So she's been doing her own freedom way of thinking as well. So she supported me as soon as she realized that it was more than just a game. Like, she came to pick me up from a tournament, and she came to this hallway, like one of those bring your own computer events, LAN parties. So my mother came there, and before that she was quite the skeptic, wished that I would go outside more, understood that we liked the games, but wished that we didn't do it quite as much. But she came to pick me up, and most of the people had already drained away from the hallway. But there was still a small group of people somewhere far off in the distance. So she started walking towards there, and she said she couldn't find me. So she was like, "Have you seen, to various people, have you seen Manuel? Like, do you know Manuel Schenkhuizen?" And people were like, "Yeah, he's right there. He's right there on stage." And my mom was like, "My son, my son on stage." So she came there and she joined the rest of the ranks of stragglers, of people who were still left behind. And then she saw me playing there on stage, and that was kind of like like we say in Dutch, the quarter fell. Ping! Like, she kind of understood then what it was all about. It was a true passion, a true calling. So ever since then, she's been pretty much my top 5 or number 1 supporter. Of course, some other people think the same, but she's been a very big supporter and has been very understanding, and just really embraced that part.
Now, did you have a quiet childhood? Were you accident prone? Were you just a boring child? I mean, what was your childhood like, Grubby?
Well, long ago. Not that long, but I can happily say I didn't have a lot of accidents. I've never broken a bone. touch wood, that it may not happen, but never broken anything. When I was very young, I got into quite a lot of fights, but they were like kind of simple fights. We had some rules: no punching, only kicking, and only kicking in the shins and on the knees. So
You're
it
in
was
a fight club? How did you have rules?
I don't know. It was like kids those days.
Okay.
In my school, like if you had a fight with someone, you would say like, well, we'll meet outside of school on some grassy field, whether it's raining or not. I mean, that's Netherlands, really. You meet there, and then you just start like kicking each other's shins until the matter has been decided. And when it has, you take your goodbyes.
The manly way of
one of them
figuring things out there.
I still remember the first time someone actually threw a punch, and I felt so betrayed.
Did you throw a punch back, or were you just like, all right?
I was just in shock.
There you go. There you go. Did you enjoy school growing up?
Yes, I did. I was quite a good child.
Except for fighting.
Yeah. Well, that's part of it, the coming of age thing. I always enjoyed school. I was quite a good child. Like, didn't really skip on school, but it was definitely not my primary enjoyment of life. Like, I went there because I enjoyed hanging out with friends, and like the actual studying, obviously not the favorite thing in the world, but it's something that I did, and I did it with good grades, and I always passed without problems. And then any other time I had, I'd like to spend with friends or gaming or anything like that.
Did you play any sports at all growing up? And if so, were you good at them?
Yeah, I played some sports. I played 1 month of basketball. And then at one point they were playing quite rough. I remember I was very young, and I said I don't want to go anymore. I came home crying. That was as far as basketball goes. But more seriously, in terms of other sports, I played a lot of soccer. Pretty much every boy in the Netherlands grows up playing soccer. My position was defender, or most of all, preferably goalkeeper. I enjoyed the goalkeeping.
Now, did you go on to college? If so, what was your degree? And if you didn't, why not?
No, the terminology is a little bit different in the Netherlands. Basically, you go to primary school till you're 12. You go to high school till you're 16, 17, or 18, respectively, depending on, let's say, your level. And then after that, you go to college/university. Now, I finished when I was 18, and that means like you did the most extensive level possible. And I also had a bilingual high school, so it means that half of my subjects were in English in order to prepare myself for an international business university education and or job. Now, I never made the step to university because, like I told you in the comparison with my brother, I'm someone who likes to do one thing that I really enjoy very much. And I always felt that I would have been decent at both university and decent at gaming had I done both. And I found it to be not really acceptable. Like, either I would have wanted to ace university and, really throw myself at my job and, the rest of the life that revolves around that kind of life, or I wanted to be the best possible gamer that I could be. And that's what I ended up choosing to do.
Was that a hard decision for your parents to kind of understand?
Yeah, in a sense it was. Like, at the time, my father actually said, if you take a year off now from university, like you don't go yet, you don't follow through with that yet, and you get a taste of independency in a sense, not completely independent, of course, but you get that taste of traveling, earning some money, doing something like that, you won't be going back anymore. But that was like the appointment I had with my parents, 1 year sabbatical, and then go back to university. I was like, no, father, really, I'll just the 1 year. But, the rest is history. I won 2 world championships that year, and I didn't really want to stop anymore. So when push came to shove and it was time for me to orient myself and decide what I'm going to do, I heard my father's voice echoing through my mind, and I was like, oh, you were right. No regrets, though. Like, far from it. The opposite is true. I feel like it was so right.
one last kind of question about your childhood. What was your favorite or fondest memory that you have?
My fondest memory. I'm kind of like, even though I don't have like that much time right now for family, I feel like I am a family man, a family person. So the times whereby we had like a super relaxing holiday where everyone was together, where everyone was relaxed and not distracted by the vicissitudes of life. That was some of my happiest memories of my childhood. Like just a holiday in Spain, all of us, the pool, the sun, going to places, walking over rocks through riverbeds. It would have to be something like that.
All right. Well, let's move on to, of course, talking about video games, which is your kind of career right now. When were you first introduced to video games, and do you remember the specific game?
Well, I've played games for longer than I can remember, literally, because my father is quite hip. Like, I would say he's probably more hip than me.
Oh, okay.
Like he's sooner with the HD recorder, with the iPod, with all those kind of gadgets. So he kind of spoon-fed us with that kind of thing. Games, Commodores, Amiga. Those were the early. I don't even know which one was first, Commodore or Amiga, but those were the consoles that we were playing on when we were little. Which game specifically, I couldn't say, but I do remember the first RTS I played, and that was Populous 2.
Wow, that is indeed a throwback there. Go to Wikipedia that to see how old that game is. Were you always competitive in them? At least in spirit, not really actually competing?
I don't know, like I've described myself as not a competitive person, but sometimes when I say that to people, they're like,
yeah,
something like that. It wasn't always necessarily that I didn't feel happy unless I won. Like, what competitive? The word, it can be interpreted in so many different ways. Are you only happy when you win if you're competitive, or are you always striving to get better? Under those vague definitions, yeah, I play games with the sole purpose of becoming better at it, but also the sole purpose of just having fun. So it wasn't necessarily I'm a competitive person and I needed a conduit. And in this day and age, that happens to be games. And 500 years ago, it would have been horseback riding or whatever, and lances, jousting. I don't think I'm first competitive and then a gamer. I think I'm first a gamer and then competitive.
Are there any games that you play casually nowadays, or do you just strictly play like Starcraft 2 right now?
Well, throughout the last 9 years of my competitive eSports gaming in Warcraft 3 and Starcraft 2, I have dabbled, to say the most, at other games, like some RPG or some other game. No other RTS. Like, I couldn't really stand other RTS anymore after I played Blizzard RTSs, like Starcraft 2, Warcraft 2, Warcraft 3, Starcraft 1. I think they're so good with the interface and with how everything works and just how they allocate the values of damage types, armor, how everything works, that, yeah, I didn't really want to play any more other RTSs. When I did play other games, and if they were RPGs or something like that, I played them for the most 3 weeks at a time, or like on and off. And then invariably my interest would go back to the RTS that I was playing, Warcraft 3 or Starcraft 2. Motivation has never been a problem, so I didn't need that distraction. It was just when a game was too juicy to not to touch. For example, Diablo 3,
yeah,
pretty fun, but I'm not gonna play it when I have tournaments coming up more than just like 1 hour or whatever.
Do you remember the first time you played Warcraft 3, and who introduced you to it?
I would say I was a Starcraft 1 player at the time, but I did switch it up with other games. And when Warcraft 3 came out, initially I was very curious, and I had all those PC gameplay magazines and so forth. I was reading about it, and it looked like totally different. If you've ever followed the progress of a game in alpha from Blizzard and then the final product, both graphically and gameplay-wise, it's like a far cry from what it was before.
Yeah.
And suddenly when Warcraft 3 came out, I felt like it wasn't as cool as I thought it was going to be. And I was kind of in the Starcraft camp. I saw some friends going towards Warcraft 3 and I was like, losers, it's like traitors. Eventually, most of them had gone over. And I was trying it out myself. Wasn't immediately excited. And I realized that this phenomenon, this experience is not just particular to me, but I've noticed it in some other people. Like, it's not love at first sight Warcraft 3, but when I gave it a second try a little bit later, on recommendation of Taco, my 2 years older brother, I fell in love. And I don't know exactly what it was, but my memory of it was I had this trick that I could do against an opponent, which made them rage. Like, it was very annoying for them. And whenever my opponent raged, I kind of enjoy myself because I realize I got under their skin. It means, I mean, come on, we're playing a war game, basically, right?
Right.
A real-time strategy. We're not playing, you're only allowed to play this game how I think it's allowed to be played game, which, admittedly, some people play that game when they play Starcraft 2. Like, you have to play in this particular way, only this style, which I condone, and otherwise you're a noob or you're, you know. I freely admit every possible style of play. No cheating, no flaming, but every style of play is allowed. So when I do that and people are annoyed by my style, it means that I'm doing something good. And the first time I had that feeling in Warcraft 3, I was like, oh yeah, I want to get better at this. I want to level up. I want to get those ladder points.
Yeah. Was there a reason you chose Orc? Or did you play another race initially?
Well, any game I ever play, I always like to go for the most strong or brutish kind of race or units. And that's kind of like how I used to pick games too when I buy them in the PC store. Like, I'll say to Taco, it's like, hey, we should get that game. And he's like, duh, there's like a big demon on the front artwork. So predictable. However, the games he picked, they were always the best because he actually thought about it, reads the manual and so on. And I'm just attracted to brutish things in terms of picking what race I play. I liked Orc because also their playstyle, but also just the general feel and lore and background of them. Would never go for the human race willingly because I like fantasy and sci-fi, so I am human, so I want to experience something else.
Do you remember the first time that you received money, whether it was winning or a salary from a team, and what did it feel like when you got that check?
I was damn proud. I got €100 sent to my PayPal, and it was a Sunday night tournament, and it went on till 2 a.m., which is way too late of a bedtime for a school-going boy. I got to school so tired, and all my friends were like, hey man, why are you so tired? And I was like, dude, I played a tournament yesterday, and I won €100. Oh yeah, that's like $120. I treated them to a snack bar meal, got some fries, got a hamburger, and we had a good time, and I was so happy. It was my first paycheck, and yeah, it felt good. It was cool.
Now, when you really started to dominate the Warcraft 3 scene, what was something that was kind of always on your mind at the time? Were you always thinking, well, I need to make a decision if I want to quit this and go to university? Was it always the next tournament? What was always on your mind?
Well, when I was still in school, the only thing that was on my mind was I can't wait till school ends. Then when I had the option to take a sabbatical, I formulated a rhetoric in order to convince the people that I needed to convince, my parents, because there were other students who would take a sabbatical to go to Australia for a while. Half a year, lose their wild feathers, discover themselves, get some experience, and I thought that is not too dissimilar from taking half a year or a year off sabbatical for traveling for pro gaming. So it was very much on my mind to try and accomplish that. Once it happened though, because I promised to stop after a year, I felt like I was kind of on borrowed time, on leased time. So I felt like I had to make the most out of it immediately. I went to Korea for 3 months, living the life of a pro gamer as much as you're familiar with it if you followed anything of Korean pro gaming. We had our team house, we went training every day, and we were living with like 6 guys to train together and compete in Korean leagues. It was pretty awesome experience, unforgettable. And once that time was about to draw to an end, and I had to decide, do I go back to university? It became this case of visualization. I was visualizing my life, Grubby, the ex-pro gamer, now gone back to university, starting at the very beginning, basically. It's kind of like if I had to start on Warcraft 3 again with a new race, as if I had never played any games ever. Like, you start completely anew, new character, real life, and although it would, my age, totally fine, my academic ability would also be fine, but was it where my heart was at? It wasn't. So I couldn't imagine it for the life of me to go make that step. I was really growing into eSports. I was doing more than just playing, even then already at that time in 2004, like doing coaching, creating strategy articles, making videos, uploading replay packs, whatever, I don't know. Just so many things. And I felt like even if I couldn't exactly predict where life or where eSports was going to take me, that somehow, hopefully, it will be alright. So when the time came to go to university, I kind of like half-heartedly applied, too late, past the deadline. Embarrassingly, I showed up at the university and I was like, so, when do I start? And they're like, well, we don't see you in the system. And I'm like, that's weird. And I said, so can I still go? And they're like, yeah, sure. Just take your books and go here and here. We can settle this later administratively, and just go get your notes at least. I was like, books? I don't have books, so whatever. It was totally forlorn.
Yeah.
It wasn't about to work. I didn't really try when I look back at it, and continued my life happily onwards in pro gaming.
Now, what was your favorite match in your Warcraft 3 history, and why? And also, what was the most important to you personally and career-wise, if it's not the same match?
Well, I always think of 3 separate occasions. You pick a number and I'll pick it. I really can't distinguish. They were all important for a different reason. You tell me which one I should start with.
I mean, can you do a shorthand version of all 3?
Okay. Short is hard for me, but yeah, I'll do that. First one, WCG 2004. I was unassuming. I won one tournament thus far, one big tournament, and some online. So I didn't really know what everything meant. I got all the way to the finals, which was in some way I felt like I could do it, but I didn't necessarily even think of it, how it would be like, whether I would make it there or anything like that. Unassuming, like I said. Then when I got to the finals, I met my Korean adversary, Zakard. And I thought, well, he's a Korean. Everyone knows Koreans are super elite. So this is the end. This is the end of my journey. I'm second place. Fantastic. So I was sitting there basically accepting loss. Now, with everything that I know now about the correct mentality to win or lose games, if you want to win games, you gotta like believe in winning. If you want to lose, you should believe in losing. Generally, that's how the mentality works. So looking back at it, me being fully convinced I was gonna lose, I found it very amazing that I won. And I lost the first map, and I was like, see, there you go. I was telling you, I thought I was going to lose there. I'm losing. I'm just proving it. It's okay. I accepted it. But out of that acceptance and that unassumingness, I played so relaxed. And moreover, I have to mention, we had a delegation of 35 Dutchies. They were all there, one big orange legion in the crowd. And they started chanting, Grubby, Grubby, Grubby. And I was like, oh man, I gotta do it, if not just for me, but for them too. If we win this, we'll be the best WCG gaming nation of the year. If I win this medal. And came back the next 2 games. Played better than I ever had in the last game, which was very cool. Second time, I can keep it shorter. 2006 against Moon, semifinals, WEG Masters. Moon had a record of being undefeated by orcs in code A/S level games, in televised games against orc, for more than a year. He had something like 36-0 against orc. So he'd never even dropped a map. When I played against him, I pretty much felt like sinking into the middle of the earth, incinerating myself. I really didn't want to show up. However, being the responsible individual that I am, I came anyway. Once again, exceeded myself in terms of what I thought I could do. And Moon was playing good. Don't get me wrong. Like I was just really up there in my level, and I won 3-1. So not only was it not a 3-2, but like I actually didn't just win a map and break his record, but I won the series, and it was amazing. 2008, fully knowing what everything means, fully knowing the importance and being able to appreciate every win that I get because the scene caught up, it became harder, more competitive. WCG 2008, and people were saying, Grubby has been, you can't do it anymore. You had your good run in 2004-5, maybe 6, 7 was not so great. Now it's 2008, it's drawing to a close. We don't think it's going to be your tournament. And I felt so energized by my team, by my wife, then girlfriend, by my family, my friends, my teammates, the fans that still believed in me. And I wanted to disprove the haters. And luck and will and willpower and visualization and everything, and my training, it all pulled me through, and I won the WCG for the second time 4 years later. And knowing what everything meant, it was one of the most emotional victories for me ever.
Now, throughout all your travels and throughout your Warcraft 3 history, you gained a ton of fans. The ones that I want to talk about are the Chinese fans. Can you talk about how big of a name you are over in Asia, specifically China, and do you have any crazy fan stories traveling to some of these tournaments?
Well, talking about it is one thing, but I would really recommend that someone would see it with his own eyes. There's really nothing that compares to it. In China, in Warcraft 3, the best players were kind of like rock stars, and me sometimes more than some others, because I was one of the most famous and well-accomplished players. And I love going to China, man. Like the fans there for Warcraft 3 and for eSports, they're so passionate, sometimes so excited that in throngs of people, they would sometimes clamor in trying to get to you, and that would create that kind of rock star effect. They're well-intentioned, but due to their excitement and their hope that this one chance that maybe they have to see their stars, because obviously you don't go to China every other day, right? And maybe not necessarily even to their city. In that eagerness to get to you, it could become dangerous to go places without a contingency of guards. And the most impressive part was in WCG 2009, where if I wanted to go to the restroom, a cordon of 9 guards surrounded me. And it seems ridiculous, but yeah, actually it was necessary.
We actually have a little bit of a clip here. This was from WSVG China 2007. Ironically enough, this was the tournament that, during the tournament, I actually got hired full-time at WSVG. Pretty upset that I missed this one, because, let's just roll the video here. This is actually from WSVG. Rest in peace, guys, but here we go.
Thanks. I'm 20 years old, and I play Warcraft 3, the Orc race. I can't even take a normal walk to the restroom without the fans absolutely mobbing me and storming the toilet, breaking down the door almost, just to get some kind of signature or photograph. I'm playing today against the player who I lost to yesterday.
Was that the craziest that it got for you?
Well, not quite the craziest, but it's a good portrayal of how passionate they are. And knowing now that I'm going to go back there the 16th of June to attend Star Wars 7, it's so cool. Like, I'm so eager to get back there and to get that feeling again. It's really nice to play there.
Is that your favorite place in all the tournaments you've played to travel to and play at?
I have three, I would say, favorite destinations: the USA, Germany, and China.
In that order?
Korea as well. Not in that order.
Okay.
Those four places: Korea, China, Germany, and USA, because each has a very strong esports scene. Those four have the best esports scene of their continent. China in Warcraft, Korea obviously in Starcraft. Actually, I can't fully back up that statement. Like Ukraine, Poland, I know there's a lot of really passionate esports countries, but Germany is just so close to me, and I've just been there so many times. WC3Ls, the ESL events, the WCG Cologne. I just have a lot of good memories there, and without saying one country is better than the other, these four countries, I have good experiences, and I've had really nice fan feedback. Just a lot of great tournaments and successful ones.
What was it like leaving the Warcraft 3 scene? Initially, I know that you played both Starcraft 2 and Warcraft 3 at the same time when you kind of started learning it, but when you finally uninstalled the game, well, maybe you didn't uninstall the game, but when you stopped playing completely, was that a sad moment in your life? Were you kind of sad to move on to the next game?
Well, I never really stopped playing it completely. I still play Warcraft 3 sometimes. It's just this, the way I see it is a beautiful chapter of my life. I store the memory in a box in my mind. I can open the box up basically anytime that I'm not senile yet. Anytime right now, I can open that box and enjoy those experiences again. And that feeling is made stronger by talking about it, by doing those Grubby Warcraft 3 commentaries that I did on YouTube, by talking and reminiscing with my wife or with other people who were in Warcraft 3 at the time. And I just think it's a beautiful chapter, and it had its place. As we know now, the esports scene in Warcraft 3 is pretty much non-existent, but Warcraft 3 still lives on in our hearts. In my heart and in those of the fans. And as corny as that may sound, as I'm sure it does, it's really true. And I just realized, and it took me a long time to accept, Warcraft 3 was on the decline in terms of purely statistically, how many tournaments are investing into it, how many teams still have Warcraft 3 teams, and I stayed for as long as I could. And you could almost say I was pretty much the captain on the sinking ship, the last to leave. Short of going to like China and focusing on really small, very irregular tournaments, there really wasn't much left to do in Warcraft 3. And by rights, I wouldn't have been able to call myself a pro gamer anymore. Like, it wouldn't have been a profession, because when everyone withdraws their support, not the fans, because they still love the game, as do I, but like, it's just not interesting anymore, business-wise, for companies to invest. Then eventually you have to make that switch. Either you leave esports or you go to another game. And I made that switch relatively softly, because I was still playing Warcraft 3, still getting my fix of Warcraft 3, but I was also starting to phase in Starcraft 2. And then, last year, January in 2011, I made that switch to Starcraft 2, trying to become a better player at that, and the love of the game grew within me. Right now, I'm a complete Starcraft 2 player with a beautiful Warcraft 3 history, and I find it acceptable. Not accepting that would make me, I don't think, a happier person. Like, it would be like some kind of regret or sadness. Like, not everything is not forever, as is that, and that's the way it is, and it's okay.
Do you feel that you were the best Warcraft 3 player, kind of overall, throughout time?
I don't think I could unequivocally say that. I think the claim I can make is top 3 most accomplished players, and maybe the most consistent player of all time. It may not be that I've... the reason I say that is because I started in 2003, and I started winning stuff in 2003, and I was still winning stuff in 2010. And no one else in Warcraft 3 had a career that long with championships every year. So, top 3 most accomplished, I think so. And best player, sometimes yes. On the day that I won a tournament, that means I was the best. Other days where I didn't, then someone else was the best. That's how it works, and you can't really say, well, this guy from 5 years ago was a better player than this guy 5 years later ever was. You know, such comparisons, sometimes they get made because it's interesting for people, but you can't really compare people who lived in different times, just like you can't say if, you know, some scientist now is smarter than a scientist 100 years ago. You mold yourself to the environment. But I went through the whole environment in the start to the end. And, yeah.
Now, when StarCraft 2 was initially announced, did you know right off the bat that you were going to start playing that game?
Well, I felt like it was a possibility, but of course I didn't know how similar it was going to be to StarCraft 1 or to Warcraft 3. But I think really the moment where I felt a pull on my heart, it started a bit with an eSports pull, because I saw that once again these crowds that I used to see in Warcraft 3, but not so much at the end of the Warcraft 3 era anymore, they were there again. They were there passionate about a new game. The game looked really sick good, but most of all it was the whole esports experience plus how good the game was. And the moment where I really felt that for the first time was the ESL tournament, the IEM, where I think Moro won. I was watching that, even though I was supposed to be training for a Warcraft 3 tournament. Sometimes I turned on the stream a little bit and I was like, wow, so cool, such a great crowd. Nice game, nice new personalities. I want to join those ranks. I want to compete with those best players. And it took a while before I made that change, like 7 months later or something. But ever since that time that I saw that, I was like, wow, that's cool. And yeah, I could see myself hopefully being a part of that.
Was it hard coming from Warcraft 3, a game where you were basically the top 3 player of all time, like you just said, to not really a nobody in StarCraft 2, but to a player where people were just like, oh, it's Grubby from Warcraft 3, he probably won't be good at this game. Was that hard for you initially?
Well, 2 aspects to that answer. Firstly, it would be unfair to even complain in the slightest about that, because for all for all how difficult it would have made it for me, it was also opening certain doors. You know what I mean? Because people already kind of know me, so there's already more attention than if I had been a complete nobody, and this offers some opportunities. So in that sense, it helped a bit. On the other hand, as a player, I had to prove myself all over again. If I sucked, never amounted to anything at all, that's a risk. Because suddenly I'm not a top 3 player anymore, I'm that guy who used to be really good at a game but then got worse at the next. So it's a bit of a risk in that sense, but it's not a challenge that I was reluctant to face, because I knew I might not be the best in 3 months or in 6 months or maybe ever, but I could be, and I had no lack of confidence that my improvement, even if it isn't meteoric, that it would be steady enough to continually improve, and to eventually start playing with the big boys, then for real play with the big boys, then be a big boy, you know, stuff like that. As far as like the underdog position goes, I think I'm the sum of all my experiences, and I already know what it's like to be the underdog from early Warcraft 3, and I have not forgotten that. I also know what it's like to be the favorite, and I made this ill-advised wish back in 2005 or something. I was like, why are tournaments so easy? Like, I wish I had a little bit more opposition. So I had that feeling for a little bit, the young me who didn't know everything yet that I should be thinking. But it got harder. I did not win everything anymore, but still took my fair share. And but I can be an underdog and I can be a favorite, and I'm comfortable with every position. It requires a different mindset, but I think I can adjust myself fairly well.
I kind of already know the answer to this question, because you mentioned it earlier when I asked you why you chose Orc or why you play the type of games that you do, but was there anything unique about choosing Protoss as your race here for StarCraft 2?
Not really, I would say. I was Protoss in StarCraft 1, so it was kind of natural to become Protoss in StarCraft 2. And I thought Orc was going to be similar to to Protoss in StarCraft 2, but really it isn't.
Do you wish that you played Terran or Zerg? Looking back, do you wish you started as another race right now?
Well, in some ways, I feel like Terran could be suitable for me, but like I mentioned to you, even if this playstyle would be suitable, I just lore-wise, like you might think it's not important, but for me it's important because I enjoy every aspect. Lore-wise, I wouldn't want to be the human race, and I don't think Zerg is as suitable for me. I think Terran Protoss, I could both play them, but I don't think Zerg is the appropriate one for me. So I feel like it's natural for me that I'm Protoss.
So never really say never in terms of switching over to Terran right now, or are you always going to be Protoss?
Well, I used to switch as a move of weakness in Warcraft 3 early days. If I couldn't beat a race, I became them. But because like the general level comparatively wasn't that high yet, that was actually possible. And I actually saved myself from the first ever WCG qualification. I was Night Elf. I lost. And then I just wanted to give up. I was like, well, I know there's a loser bracket, but I'm not going to win because I can't beat this guy in Night Elf Mirror. And it was Arthur, my 6 years old older brother. He was like, I've seen you play with random, Manuel. Try to play human. I think you'll do quite well. So I took it, and I breezed through the whole bracket, 2-0 score straight back to back, until I won the quali. That was possible then. I don't think quite like that's possible now anymore. And then, of course, you've got the added psychology of this community perceiving that if you would change race, they will think like it's like a between-the-line statement that you think that race is the best. So there's so much more pressure on you in when you make a race switch now as a known player, because you're making like lots of statements, and it will probably chase you forever. Just like when you try to change your nickname, it's pretty much impossible. It's just this identity crisis thing. So even if I would want to, which I don't, but if I would want to, it would bring a lot of difficulties and it would set me back a lot, and I don't think I can afford to do that at all. So both in terms of what's best and also I'm happy with it, I stick with Protoss. Orc and Protoss.
You stick with Orc. When the rumors really started kind of swirling around that and the buzz that you were going to switch over to StarCraft 2, were you super nervous about that switch and how competitive you would be, or if you'd live up to the hype, or did you kind of block that out and just try to learn the game at your own pace?
Well, it's a good question, JP. Initially, I made statements about where I said I think I'll be, and I think I just about precisely lived up to them. Like I said, in 3 months, I will be competitive, that I could sometimes take games off of the current top in Europe. And it was true. In 3 months after I started, I took 3rd place in Copenhagen Games, beating TLO and Morrow. For them, that they always get used as the example of my breakthrough. So there's that. And I said in 6 months, I'll be able to kind of play with the big boys on par, hopefully, in my mind, trading equal scores with them. And it was more or less true as well. And then 9 months later, I had spent some time in Korea, and I made some really nice performances. And now we're like a year and 3 months further, and I feel like I'm able to now compete with Koreans, as attested by beating Ryung and Oz at MLG Spring Arena 2. Now, I know that's just a few isolated matches, and it's nowhere near. Don't worry, like I'm never really satisfied. But I think my progress has been quite steady, and yeah, I wasn't really worried about it. I feel like I was quite realistic. I knew it was going to take a decent amount of time, and it's working out okay.
Mechanically, what was the hardest thing for you to learn in StarCraft 2? Was there any one specific thing that maybe even today that you still kind of struggle with?
Yeah, my 2 biggest challenges are, at first it was using the camera keys. So I practiced about 6 months using, or 4 months using 4 to 6 months using camera keys to center on certain places on the map. And only after that time, I noticed for the first time, I was like, oh, I used it once, for real, in a game. I'm so proud. It took a long time because my Warcraft 3 habits were so hardcore ingrained into my system, in my muscle memory, in my brain memory. My neural pathways were forged in order to make creep routes and not camera control keys and such things. And I'm happy with it now. Of course, I still try to become better at everything, but I'm happy that I was able to do that. I think right now my biggest challenge of all is minimap awareness, and I'm actually looking for special techniques in order to try and improve that. Because sometimes I scout stuff because I have stuff in the right position and it passes by, but I don't see it. So yeah, I'm working on that. That's quite hard. Like the actual making gateways, yeah, it's macro, it's mechanics, right? But it's not rocket science. Like when you need to do it, you do it. If you don't remember to do it, you should, create memories that you do it more often. But the minimap awareness, I find it to be quite a tough skill, and I'm excited to go about overcoming the challenge.
I gotta ask you about balance. I'm sorry, it's just a topic that people are gonna want to know about. Do you feel like any of the matchups or anything mechanically is quote-unquote broken right now in StarCraft 2? Or is it still kind of player fault for those imbalances?
Well, I want to preface this by saying that...
Hold on, let me full screen you here. I don't want to be a part of this. I'm not going to... Real talk graphic going away. All right, Grubby, you're clear.
I want to preface this and say that I have full confidence that either through patches or expansion sets, everything will eventually be okay, because Blizzard has always done a tremendous job with every game that they've had to balance things out. And I don't just speak of the balance of eventual or potential or current strength of a race, but also in terms of just changing something up just to change the metagame for the sake of it. So it's not just, for example, that something was too strong, but sometimes you see them make subtle changes just to encourage different types of play, like the Hellion play against Zerg, which you are so excited about to see every game. They did stuff, whether it was necessary or not, that maybe encouraged the Terran to go less with the standard 4 Hellion arrest against Zerg, stuff like that. And you see this all throughout Warcraft 3. I could talk about it for hours or days, but I want to preface it with that. So I don't feel like any of this is unfixable, either through player solutions or future patches or expansion sets. Having said that, I think all the matchups are fairly okay. I think PvT is really quite okay. Early and late game and mid game, every point there are things which a player can do, whether or not it's a little bit harder for them than for the opponent, which puts them solidly in the lead or wins the game for them. At some point I feel, late game Protoss against Terran, it's so strong, so easy, I just want to get to that point, and when I get there I'll win. Partly that's my shape speaking, partly it's like strong late game P versus T. But on the other hand, yesterday or 2 days ago I played this guy, he takes a big army with Ghost, he drops it in my main, right? I had no vision of it because he scanned and killed observers, and then he starts killing my gateways, and he immediately plants down a nuke in the middle of my gateways. Now, this is like solid macro position already. We've both got like 4 or 5 bases, so my gateways is chock full of gateways. My base is chock full of gateways, and my gateways is full of gateways. He puts that nuke there, and there was like no way for me to get there to him. And I don't have any air units or anything like that, so to my shame, I still tried to get there, and everything that didn't die already to his army got nuked, lost all my buildings. This is a type of move that you can say, hey, in theory, like let's say you've got 2 guys, a Protoss and a Terran, the Terran's complaining, and you talk. In theory, this is, without ever having seen it, you can say it, it's possible, and it could be very strong. And it's actually something you can do which can put you immensely in the lead, definitively. And it works in theory, and I also felt like it works in practice. Maybe you can't do it every game, but that's not how a game is supposed to be played. It's a real-time strategy. It's the art of war. Anything goes. You need to come up with it, and it needs to work in a situation. So that's as far as PvT goes, for example. PvP, Blizzard did a great job with it. It's so cool now. There's really not much luck involved. There is sometimes some luck, but mostly if a Protoss player chooses to engage the matchup in that way. There's so many different strategies which work, and it's a really cool matchup. PvZ I'm not as excited about right now. I loved Brood War PvZ from both sides, playing as Zerg or as Protoss. But I feel like it's a little bit broken in the sense that 2-base all-ins are quite strong against Zerg, but it's like the only recourse because if we talk about the old PvZ, which was like Roach Hydra Corruptor against Colossus Immortal Stalker Sentry, what you usually had was the Zerg needs to be bases ahead because their army is quite inefficient. They couldn't quite get through the force fields, and sometimes they overproduce or underproduce Corruptors. And I felt like, while it wasn't necessarily easy because there was still a lot of unexplored options that Zerg could be doing, like drops or splitting their army better or doing more flanks, which we see now, but we didn't see then. Then it was just herpaderp against the force fields, like, I can't get through, like mine player roaches. The roaches were like that. Couldn't get through. There were theoretical things which I knew, but of course I wasn't going to say, because then I'm making it harder for myself, that Zerg could do, which theoretically would work. They needed more money because their army was more cost inefficient. Makes sense, right? That's how a balance could work. It's still like that a bit in PvZ. Like, we need to be cost efficient, and sometimes we have that power, we have that capability of being cost efficient against Zerg, but they have more money, and we get that cost efficiency. You look at the units lost tab, often that is attained in the early game. Whereas in late game, they still usually have more money, just because they can make more drones at a time when they want it, and they can have more bases, because it's like cheaper and less of a commitment for them and stuff. But their army also is more cost efficient, and in that sense, I find that to be a little bit problematic for me, and maybe other people feel the same. I think so, because I've heard it. Because when they get that Broodlord Infestor combination, it's quite a potent combination, which doesn't necessarily have like a clear counter. There is a lot of theory crafting, but it doesn't really work. Like Void Ray, it does bonus damage to Broodlord, right? But it gets countered by Fungal Growth and Infested Terrans very easily and very cost efficiently. So if I have more money than the Zerg, then it's okay. With Mothership, with Archon, Stalkers and so on, I can kill their army, they reproduce, but I have more money, so I can try to press the point and win the game before I have to face another fully maxed army. But if they have more money and they have that combo and upgrades, and they have a smart positioning and they don't make herpaderp mistakes like flying everything into the toilet, then I find it to be both a bit uninteresting, the matchup, because you're both camping and eventually the Protoss will just lose usually if the Zerg doesn't make any big or many big mistakes. And yeah, and they have more money. So I'm personally quite excited about the Mothership being removed from the game, because you can't really tout one unit as a counter to a whole freaking fully upgraded army, right? Like, it's not a damage monster, it's just like a positional advantage. Quite big, but it's just one unit. If you don't have it yet, you die to Broodlord Infestor. If it dies once, there's like a 5-minute window for the Zerg to finish the game. And if it gets neuraled, you lose the game as well. So I'm a bit sad about that. I hope we had more unit counters, but you see some players, they are better at it than me, for sure. So I try to learn from that. And also, Protoss will try to use War Prism to like pull the Zerg apart. Or, as you see a lot, try to finish the game before it gets there. And that's a sad reality which I have to face right now. But it means, just like MC said at the Red Bull Battlegrounds, 2-base all-in or 3-base all-in. Like, going for 5-base against Terran, it's okay, just as okay as going for 3-base. And the same against Protoss. Usually it's 1 or 2 base, but it can be 3, 4, 5. You can both get the same army. Against Zerg, like, going for a lot of economy and not trying to just win the game is usually just much lower chance of winning. And I believe that through this frustration I will become a better player, because I need to try and find the solution for myself. And of course it's very hard to be Zerg, because there's a lot of mechanics. You need to be very fast and you need to position everything correctly and so on, and it's very challenging, I know. And this is not a dig at them, but I just wish like the actual structure of the matchup was a little bit different than just hoping that you get a lucky vortex.
Okay, glad that question is over. What was the, just because I know the trolls out there are gonna want to pick that apart, but I think you guarded everything pretty well. You didn't make any huge striking announcements or anything like that. So, moving right along, when you won your first tournament in StarCraft 2, or you placed high in your first tournament, was that a big moment for you? Was that kind of like, look guys, I can actually do this type moment for you?
Yeah, I won online tournaments. It was very happy days for me. I kind of felt young again. I am young, of course, relatively speaking, but I felt like the young Grubby who won his first Warcraft tournament again. You would think that I've seen it all or whatever, but because it's a new game, I feel new and young, and it's exciting and challenging. When I won the first online one, yeah, it felt good. I savored that. And offline, I've also won tournament now with the Blizzard WCS, and that was pretty cool too.
Well, what was the biggest slump that you've ever been in, both in Warcraft 3 and Starcraft 2, and how did you overcome that?
Yeah, the biggest slump in Warcraft 3 would be around the 2007 time. And part of the reason was because I was so stressed in my mind. Like, I was in Four Kings at the time, and I wasn't. They had financial problems, and I trusted the manager fully, naively so perhaps, and he didn't feel for some reason that he could tell the truth probably, and yeah, it had led to a very stressful situation where I kept having to change my salary and to chase the money which I fronted for my own travel. I spent tens of thousands of travel believing that I will get it back from the manager, and one time I did. How many months, half a year late? Next time, eventually there was an end to it, and it buried deep in my pocket. And this was very stressful because I was constantly thinking about, oh, you know, I need to chase him, but I don't want to annoy him, and it was like ridiculous. Like, I should never even have been in that situation. It was very unhealthy for me to be in it, and it affected my performances some as well. So that was probably like the worst time that I had, and it got to the point where I felt like I rather just quit because I couldn't really deal with it anymore mentally. But certain things happened, and due to the support of my lovely girlfriend, I managed to soldier through it. Things changed, settings changed, teams changed, feelings changed, and in 2008 I started picking myself up from that, which, as I said, culminated in WCG 2008.
Now, what was the... You kind of hit on that a little bit here for the question that I'm trying to ask, but in terms of just being emotional, whether it's being completely frustrated at a LAN event and being in that booth, or whether it's just kind of shedding a tear or something from raw emotion, was there ever a moment like that for you? And if so, what was that like? Maybe, I guess what I'm looking for in the public sphere, where people have seen something like that happen to you, what was that like to you?
I don't think I'm that public with my most inner emotions of frustration in terms of not that public anyway. I think I've never cried for losing. I don't really see the point I don't really see the point in doing that. Like, it's not the emotion that I feel like crying. Usually it would be disappointment, sadness, regret, whatever. I have felt the tear glands stinging when I won sometimes, and crying out of happiness I've only done it once, and it was when I saw my wife walking down the aisle for my marriage. I actually had that, but in terms of like crying out of happiness, not really, but I felt my tears stinging after I got some very emotional, very meaningful victories in eSports, some tournaments. But it wasn't like the floodgates opened, but I felt like, whew, it was like this relief, this ecstasy, all combined, which kind of exploded outwards. And whether or not I showed it emotionally with a power fist or whatever, when I feel that in myself, I know this was an important one and it was a relieving one. Those are the emotions that I've experienced.
Let's talk teams here for a bit. Now, you've been on 4Kings, you've been on Meet Your Makers, and most recently Team Evil Geniuses. In March 2011, yourself and Team Evil Geniuses announced that you were leaving the team, but it was never really said why. Currently, you are a part of Team Grubby, but you're independent is basically what it means. Can you talk about that process at all, about leaving EG? Was there any bad blood? Is that why things weren't really talked about? What happened?
Well, it has just always been my dream to be independent. Like even before I parted ways with EG, for about 2 years already, I had that dream. But I feel like before I wasn't emotionally ready, and I wasn't maybe to that point of maturity yet, or knowledge, or along those lines. But I really felt like the time was right, and it's been really awesome so far. Like I feel like it was the correct choice. I'm now working on developing my own brand, Grubby. I feel like this way I can do more for the community, for the sponsors, and for myself. Like interesting projects, partnerships. So above and beyond that, I also think above and beyond just eSports, it's a type of good business experience because I'm learning to do a lot of things myself. I learn more about how things work. It's a very valuable, invaluable experience, I should say. And in terms of development of my person, of my my character, I think it has been very meaningful and good as well. So from what I envisioned it to be, from why I made the move, it has been all that and more, and yeah, I'm very happy with it to be an independent StarCraft 2 player.
Now, just for the record, there's no negative feelings between yourself and EG. Is there? Like I said,
no, not at all.
Okay, I just wanted to make that known to everyone because I know that people are wanting me to get a lot of submissions for that one question wise. Logistically, now being on your own, being independent, what is that like? Do you do it all yourself? Do you have help from a team? Is it just you and Cassandra? How does that all work?
Yeah, it's obviously Cassandra is a great support and help, both mental and in terms of actual logistics. It's been only about a year now, a year and 28 days, and yeah, I think it's working out really well. I couldn't be more happy really with how things are going. I've also got a lot of staffs like designer, programmer, lots of other people who are passionate about Grubby, about me, and who just want to be a part of it or want to help me out of their passion in esports. So those people, they really help me to support in what I can do now as being an independent player. And one more thing I think I should touch on is I don't think my label per se is without a team. Like why should it be labeled like that? A player doesn't need to be in a team, I feel like, to be a pro gamer. Like a player is a pro gamer if he's a pro gamer, like he makes his living out of it. And I see more my label as being independent. My label is an independent player, not like no team. Like, sometimes you see a tournament overlay or whatever, it says like no team. That's I think it's like the wrong idea that some people might have. So Grubby, the independent StarCraft 2 player. I like it.
Is that what tournament organizers should put then, the independent StarCraft 2 player?
Yeah.
All right.
Exactly. Thanks.
We'll work on that at MLG. You mentioned Cassandra throughout almost the entire interview at almost every point. Well, I'm not harping on that, but she seems very, very important, both obviously in your personal life and in your career. What is it like having someone like that always there, kind of supporting you, and how important is she to your career right now?
It means the world.
Short and sweet.
Nothing more to say. Yeah.
Short and sweet. You've traveled the world. You've probably met so many different famous people, tons and tons out there. Who is your favorite?
Well, in terms of like non-esports celebrities, you mean, or
In terms of anything.
in terms of anything? Whew, it's hard. I had a lot of fanboy moments meeting various people. I had that when I met Showtime, who was a Korean Night Elf player. He was like this player that I really admired. I was Night Elf at the time, and he was a Korean player. And he was like very famous in Korea. So before I could say anything, and I wouldn't have because I was nervous. I just saw him from afar. He turned to me and he said, "Hi, Grubby." I was like, "Oh, so cool." He knew me, and that was kind of a fanboy moment. I felt really cool as well when I met Tasteless, because he was a commentator who was casting, I heard, in the GOM TV tournament in Starcraft 1. I thought he was really good, really nice voice, and I really loved listening to him, and I felt like sometimes one man can make a difference in an esports for a scene. Like just a man at the right place doing the right thing will help esports to a next step. And when I met him, he was really nice as well in WCG 2006, I think. So that was cool. Always nice when you meet someone and they're not a dick. He was really cool and friendly. Yeah, who else? Slayer's Boxer, when I met him. It's the only guy I ever asked the signature of. And I still treasure it. I have it labeled because he's just a role model in so many ways. And then in terms of not esports, probably the coolest person I've met is Kasparov, the chess legend and grandmaster from Russia. He came to the Netherlands for the same premiere as for something else. But he came to Netherlands for a TV studio where I was there as well. And he actually knew of me because his son was a fan of me. So as to strategical masterminds of our respective branch, it was very interesting to talk to him. His questions were very on point about Warcraft 3. And his son even has a poster of me in his bedroom. And obviously I knew from him, my father is very into chess, so he often talked to me about Kasparov, and to talk to him, even though it was a short time, pretty cool.
What I got to hit on that more. What did you guys talk about? You said he asked the right questions. Do you remember any specifically?
Yeah, we always use chess as an analogy, right? When we talk about what RTS or what strategical games are like, when we speak to the uninitiated, someone on the train, a mother, a father, right? Non-esports person. So we always compare it to chess. So always talking about the similarities of the games. What was interesting is he pointed out something which to him would strike him as very interesting and different, because what he mostly talked about was the different races. Obviously in chess you've got two races, black and white. They're pretty much the same, but one always gets the first move. And that's about it. And you play both races. So for him, I think, which was one of the most fascinating aspects, is that there's 4 different inherent races with their own units, which don't just move diagonally or in horse jumps, but they all move differently at different speeds and so on. So he asked about how is it like when you play a mirror matchup, or how is it like when you play a different matchup.
Well, I'm sure that tons of people would love to be a fly on the wall in that conversation. Now, most recently, you've dabbled kind of in the casting world, taking a full-time gig at the MLG arena for the first spring, or for the first spring arena. Is this something you see yourself doing full-time ever? And when is the right time for that?
Well, when I visualize that, I can see the picture unrolling. I can see the film reel rolling, and I see happy moments. I think that's possible. I think it would be really cool, and it would be a privileged position, to be sure. However, right now, I am a player who does some casting. And I feel like it's very awesome when I get a good offer and I can do some casting on the side to show, hopefully, fans more depths of play that perhaps heretofore they had not thought possible. If that goal is achieved, then I'm happy, and that is a success, because that will allow them to enjoy the game more. And they see, when they see those depths that they didn't think that were necessarily possible. So I try to kind of tip the veil of pro gaming tactics as much as I can, even at the risk of exposing my mind to potential rivals. I really enjoy casting. Sometimes, of course, I get to a front row seat on eSports games. Besides being a player and all that other shizazzle, I'm also a eSports fan. I'm an RTS fan. I'm a Starcraft 2 fan. So getting a front row seat and being allowed to talk on air about games, which I'm enjoying as I go, is really very nice indeed. When we speak of the time investment that I do forecasting compared to everything else I do in esports, think of it as a 1 to 7% time investment, probably lower on the end of that. Obviously, I spend a lot of time practicing, doing my esports career, going to tournaments, doing streaming and so on. Casting is a very small part of that, but I think it's nice. It's a variety, it's a different challenge. I show people a bit of a different side, and from the feedback I've heard, it's been very well liked. So I hope I can do it fairly regularly. In fact, I'm going to cast the 2nd and 3rd of June. I'm going to do the Blizzard WCS Germany one on ESL TV. So you can see me there to cast, and who knows, maybe again in the future with MLG if I'm not playing. But first and foremost, yeah, I'm a player.
What are your thoughts on kind of the current casting scene? I don't want you to pull a Cloud or anything like that. Don't go. Well, if you want to, feel free to go ranting. I'd love to get the views for it.
Thank you.
What just general thoughts on the casting scene?
Well, I pretty much believe just in that we kind of have a free, self-correcting market. And as any market, there are both bubbles and there are legitimate structures. So I think generally, not everyone may know the Cloud story. It's kind of like he said, casters get paid too much, players get paid too little. That's what he said, just to preface this. Otherwise you might not know what I'm talking about. But I think people that work hard and do a service for the community, they get paid for that. Hopefully, the market will make that to be a fair payment. And if it's not, eventually it'll correct itself. I think that's just how it goes. It is a free market. So I don't think it's my place or necessarily anyone else's to say that anybody is earning too much. You can't look in other people's pockets. You can't look in their cash flow. And they're all private companies, so they really don't have the burden of proof that they need to show you their credentials or anything like that. So that's also why I think we can't really talk about that, despite the obvious fascination. In terms of the other part of the argument, it's like, do players get enough compensation? Probably some get more than they deserve. So probably some not. Probably not, actually. They get more than they might have gotten purely based on their academic skill performance. But that's not all there is to it, right? There's also just what you do outside of playing and how valuable are you to a sponsor. And that is the market mechanism. And when that's working, it's working. And you can't really browbeat it into being something it's not. Whether there's some players that are being underpaid, probably. But again, if there's no corporate entity who has the money or who has enough money to support 500 players, then that's the reality of it as well. So all we can do is to try to be the best possible scene that we can, to try and pull in companies and make them really interested, not just superficially trying to draw them over the line and say, invest in this bubble. Just invest, like it's not a bubble, just invest. But I really hope that we can get them truly interested, not just about money or about getting people paid more, but to really say, this person who is running the marketing department of this or that company, they really get it, they really dig it, they love what we're doing. And that in the end is the goal, to get more and more people to appreciate esports, which, to be fair, is the sport of the future. Like, it's completely unstoppable. Maybe not necessarily Blizzard game, hopefully yes, maybe not necessarily RTS, hopefully yes, because that's my prime mode. But the fact that competition will be done electronically in the future, it's completely inevitable. So we try to get there as quickly as possible. We try to still be living individuals so that we can experience it. It will definitely happen. The sooner the better, because I would like to see it. Go to a bar, which is not a Warcraft, but they're playing eSports. You know, just because it is the most sensible for them to do it, because that's what people want to see, man. Come on.
Yeah.
So then you'll have like Sportscraft. It's like that one bar, that awkward little bar in the town which isn't playing esports yet. It's like football craft.
Yeah. Well, maybe one day. Maybe one day. Now, one of the other things, you announced the mentorship of Feast a while back, and a lot of players / community figures kind of made a joke about it. Specifically, I think Rhett was a player that made a thread pretty much in joking. There was no vile intentions with that or anything. But can you describe what this process is with Feast and what it essentially means, and also how's it going so far?
Yeah, I just feel along my way in esports, I've been helped by people who didn't need to, but they did. Just because, for the sake of feeling good when you help another person, they've helped me either in my skill level or in my esports or anything like that, offered me opportunities, and I think it's a world wherein, if we can, we should help each other if possible. And for people having done that to me, I wanted to do that to someone else as well, someone deserving. And when I got to know Feast, I feel like he was a friend, a kindred spirit, thinks a lot the same like me, and I see in him qualities that I kind of a little bit recognize in myself, my young self as well. I see inexperience, but I also see hard work, talent, intelligence, and this is what I hope to allow to come to its full fruition with my guidance a little bit. Now, in terms of the announcement, I just think it was good to announce that I am doing a mentorship with him, just so that people don't get the wrong idea and like start to assume with some drama that I'm trying to take him from Team Millennium, which is where he is at happily, and try to recruit him for my own team or anything like that. So that's basically the reason why it was good to announce. And I think the announcement was very well received by 99.99% of the community, basically because it was clear, it was open, and it was unambiguous. And yeah, as I recall, there was just one person who came in and made some jokes about it, and that's pretty much the whole was to it.
Well, ironically enough, the last question I have before we get to the user questions, submitted from sites like Reddit, Starcraft, and Team Liquid. What do you think of these sites? A lot of people are saying that the community right now is very TMZ-ish. It's very...
TMZ is like gossip.
Yeah, it's very... In the
right?
US, it's a very gossip-centric. Obviously, being at the top of the food chain in Warcraft 3, you've probably dealt with this a little bit more than the average person right now in esports. Do you read it? Do you pay attention to it? How do you deal with negativity right now in your position, or in the past?
In terms of what I think about Reddit, there's basically two sites that I visit a lot, and it's Team Liquid and Reddit. And I think Team Liquid, it's a bit more strictly moderated, which allows for a little bit more, let's say, gentlemanly discussion. And I think that's nice. They have their place, and you've got this Team Liquid supporter group who may not visit Reddit as much. But you've also got people like me who visit both. When I visit Reddit, I feel like it's a more liberal place. So I know that people value their freedom, and it's not moderated as heavily, so you have more extremes, both in the positive spectrum, where you see like 15 threads pop up based on one player's performance in one league, and then they have to go delete some of those threads. But sometimes you see the moderators and they'll be like, no, let's leave it, just to accurately portray how excited and passionate this Reddit community is about that particular performance on that day. And then, of course, you've got the negative side, where there's a fixation on certain dramas and so on. But really no different than we see in real life when there's some drama. It also gets gossiped about a lot, and there is just a need, apparently, for people to sometimes fixate on that type of drama. And because it's the internet, that kind of information spreads more easily, and you can more easily hook in to that type of drama. As far as I enjoy reading both. I may be more of a lurker, but I read both, and I enjoy reading. As far as the second aspect of your question was,
how do you deal with it?
How do I deal with it?
Yeah, if there's a, wow, Grubby is such a terrible player, blah 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 blah. He sucked at this tournament. Do you even read that? Do you see it and be like, nope, not even looking at it?
Well, I try not to read that, but sometimes you can be like, you can't unsee it if you see it, just because I'm looking at various interesting topics. But the thing is, I kind of see myself as a sponge of positivity. I surround myself, both on the internet and in real life, with people who are positive, because I find that it makes me a better person, and it makes me happier, and it makes me more successful at the goals that I'm trying to pursue. And I'm not about to let some negative Nancy's influence me in my life, because it's like my life, right? So I don't really pay attention to it. Of course, I'm someone who can listen to criticism, but personally, it's the best. And I don't really get affected by it anymore. Maybe I used to, but I'm a little bit more experienced for that. I'm an old dog now, so no worries about that.
All right, well, let's move on to the user questions. Starting off is Friendrome from Reddit. He wants to know, when will the next version of the website followgrubby.com be launched?
Yeah, I want to say June. I announced it to be April, but as sometimes happens with websites, I'm not the programmer or designer myself, so I can't do something actively with it to fix it right now. But I know that the two who are working on it, the team that is working on it, they're working very hard at it. They also have other projects, but they're doing everything they can. I think they're doing a fabulous job, and I really hope that we can launch it in June. I really think that's going to happen, because we'll be ready to test it internally very, very soon from now. So thanks for your patience. Followgrubby.com will be up very soon.
From MunQQ from Reddit, he wants to know, which players do you look up to in Starcraft 2?
You've also got players who say, well, I don't look up to anyone because I'm good and stuff, but even though I'm good, and even though I want focus on myself, there's always someone you can learn something from, right? For me, the players that I like watching the most is Hero and MC. MC for his sheer effectiveness and tournament result based play, and Hero because his play is pretty artistic and beautiful. And of course, they were both ex-OGS. Now Hero's with Liquid, MC is with SK. But when they were in OGS, I had the pleasure and privilege to be in the OGS house to train there for 2-3 weeks, and I got to see them play both live, and that was an influence on me. It was very cool to see them. They were very fast, and Hero is a beautiful player. MC cruelly effective.
Another question from Reddit, this time from ... If you could join any team out there, which would it be?
Yeah, so see, I wouldn't do that. Like, I'm happy to be an independent. If it's about teammates, you're wondering, like, I would surround myself with like-minded individuals who pursue the same goals and have the same level of dedication as me to become a better player. And it doesn't need to be bound by a team per se. Like, I'm able to pick the people who I like to surround myself with quite well. And I have a lot of projects planned with being independent. I think it's very interesting and challenging. I don't need to be in a team to achieve any of the goals that I have. So I don't have a pick.
All right. From Tortellini, will either you or Cassandra ever consider doing blogs again like you did with the old EG website?
Yeah, and before that with the old MIM website, and before that with 4K, and before that Cassandra had a blog not esports related. I think both of us would like to do that again when we have a solid platform. Don't exactly know what it's going to be, but we're pretty busy at times that, and I think that kind of thing is best when it's relatively regular so that people have something to come back to and to look forward to. So The answer is yes. The timeline, ETA, undetermined.
And the last user question from Oniman999 on Team Liquid. If not for pro gaming, what would you want to do with your life?
Well, I always kind of make a joke of that because it's so hypothetical that you can't truly predict what you will do.
I think you said you'd want to be a baker, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Is that
Bake those breads. I love the smell of bread.
Is that still the answer?
I can't visualize it. Well, I can visualize it, but I don't see it realistically happening. I love bread, the smell of bread in particular, and good bread in particular. Just read Tilo's tweet from Korea. He's like, for the love of God, phase out sweet bread. Thank you, every German in the world. Like, bread's supposed to have a hard crust, and I can sense that appreciation of good bread. And I find it sometimes at places like Russia. They have really good bread. Korea, not so much, because they're more about rice and stuff. So, yeah, bread, cool. What would I have been? Go to university and then whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I really can't predict.
Well, I have some final questions. They're short, but you can, of course, answer them however long you want to. StarCraft 1 players' thoughts. I feel like it's a question that's asked to every single person out there, but just some quick thoughts on them. Are you scared? Are you kind of waiting to see how good they're going to be like everyone else?
Not scared, because it's pointless. The only thing to fear is fear itself. Also, we don't know where it's going to take us. We also don't know where they're going to participate. There's just a whole lot of speculation. Yes, they're going to be good, but they're not going to blow people like MVP out of the water. There's just no doubt about it. You're still playing the same game, right? They're also not robots, so... Yeah, some of them will be good, some of them will actually not be good. And that's just how it's going to be, and there's really no point to worry about it.
Favorite caster? If you had to watch any tournament in the world and it had one caster or one casting team, who would it be?
I'm gonna have to go with 4 different ones.
4 different ones?
I know it's kind of weak, but I really enjoy Apollo's casting, Tastosis, Day 9, and DJ Wheat, and everyone else. There's also good ones, there's some less good ones, but that's really not the point. Personally, I like listening to them. I think they have a nice voice, all of them, and I look up to them as a caster, and I enjoy listening to them when a tournament is running. Good job, guys. Keep it up.
Some word association here. One word answer. I'm going to ask you the 3 races. Zerg, what's your one word answer to that?
All in.
Protoss.
Protoss. Nice matchup.
Terran.
Storm.
There you
How's
go.
the weather?
There you go. When are you happy with yourself in StarCraft 2, Grubby?
Sorry?
When are you happy with StarCraft 2? When can you say that you are not done with this game, but you have reached what you consider to be a nice spot in the game?
First foreigner to win GSL.
All right. Is that, I mean, goal for 2012, is that something that's always going to be there? Or is that too soon in your eyes?
Well, it's been the goal since 2010 that I start. 2010, yeah, before I even started playing. So it's not based necessarily on a timeline or on realism, but on just the end goal for now.
All right.
After that, we'll see.
Well, you mentioned GSL. Final question I have for you is Korea in your future, in the near future for you?
I sure hope so.
All right. Well, that's all the questions I have, Grubby. Thank you for doing this. I know it went a little bit longer than anticipated. You have any final thoughts, any shout-outs that you want to give to sponsors or promotional websites or anything like that?
Yes, thank you. If you want to find out more about me, the best place for now to always find that out is twitter.com/followgrubby, facebook.com/followgrubby, and of course a huge thanks to all my supporters, all my current followers, subscribers and whatnot, all my fans. Thank you so much for that. And of course a huge shout out and thanks to my partners and sponsors, Twitch TV, and my stream sponsors, onash.com, dlcompare.com, and pokerstrategy.com. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching this, and thank you, JP, for preparing such a nice interview.
Not a problem, man. Thank you so much for coming on. Guys, I'm not sure who the next person's going to be. Feel free to leave comments over in the official thread on Team Liquid or in the comments of this video, but that is going to do it for this episode of Real Talk. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and we will see you next time here for Real Talk. I'm JP McDaniel, signing out.